Have you ever heard of a mind palace? If you've watched Sherlock Holmes, you might remember Sherlock's impressive ability to recall tons of information from his memory storage. Some people doubt it as science fiction. Well, it's not. The Mind Palace is actually based on a real technique, and it ties directly into what we're talking about today: information processing theory, or IPT. It is a cognitive theory that explains how we process information through attention, perception, encoding, storage, and retrieval. It is based on an important assumption or metaphor. Our brain operates like a computer. The current leading IPT model is refined by several great theorists. Richard Atkinson and Richard Schifrin introduced the multi-store model, one of the leading frameworks in IPT. Alan Baddeley and Graham Hitch expanded on the short-term memory part with the concept of working memory. And George Armitage Miller discovered the memory capacity in working memory and coined the chunking strategies that we will talk about later. Together, their models build the foundation of IPT as we know it today. Let's break this model down, stage by stage. Here is stage 1, sensory register. This is where information first enters the model. Here is the very preliminary process, and it holds unlimited capacity, but only for a brief moment. No interpretation, just raw data passes through here. And senses last differently. Like visual memory fades more quickly than auditory. However, only necessary information can be passed into next stage, so we need to pay attention. With attention, the information gets passed to the working memory where actively processes and temporarily stores what we're focusing on. According to Baddeley and Hitch, working memory has 4 parts: central executive, the manager that directs attention; phonological loop, handles verbal and auditory information; visuospatial sketchpad, takes care of images and spatial data; episodic buffer, brings it all together and links to long-term memory. Oh, and remember Miller? He discovered that working memory can hold about 7 items, plus or minus 2 for around 30 seconds. But we can make this duration time longer with rehearsal. We have rehearsal as a defense against forgetting. Maintenance rehearsal repeats items to keep it in working memory, just like how you repeat PIN code or telephone number. And on the other hand, we have elaborative rehearsal that connects to long-term memory through linking new information to our existing knowledge. So now we are done with working memory, and encoding helps the information to be stored in long-term memory. Vice versa. If we try to get something from long-term memory, that's retrieval. Long-term memory has theoretically unlimited capacity and can last permanently. Information here can be stored in different ways: semantically, visually, acoustically, and emotionally. Do you still remember the Mind Palace? This is where the Mind Palace really comes in. Think of it as a way to organize and access long-term memory through vivid mental imagery. There are different types of long-term memory. We have declarative, which are stuff you know like facts, events. Procedural, how-to knowledge like riding a bike or driving. Explicit, knowledge that is recallable or explainable. Or implicit, knowledge that is not verbally articulated, and etc. IPT is widely applied in many fields. Why is IPT useful and important in education? Firstly, IPT gives us a clear, structured view of how learning happens, and it inspires many effective teaching and learning strategies that can help to design lesson plan, improve learning outcomes, help with learning disabilities. Let's put it into action with a classroom example. Imagine a high school physics lesson on vectors. Students might already have real-world knowledge, like road signs from learning to drive because they are about 16, and they also have knowledge about building signs like existing signal. In this case, we can use real-life visuals to activate their attention into the signs illustrated in the pictures. And we can use interactive cues and questions to guide students to pay attention to T-arrows and make meaningful connections, such as, why is this arrow important? What does it tell us? These help students connect the image with the key idea of direction in vectors, and their attention can be kept on tasks. Now, we're in the working memory zone. Here we need to encourage elaborative rehearsal so students can link the new concept of vectors to their existing knowledge. We can do this by asking students to annotate real-life images with vectors and discuss with a partner to explain their thoughts. Meanwhile, we need to be careful on the cognitive load, or capacity in working memory. So we can use chunking strategies to break down the concept into manageable and digestible steps using a flowchart. Finally, to help information stick in long-term memory, we need retrieval strategies, exit tickets at the end of this class, and low-stake mini-quizzes at the start of the next class. This reinforces what students have learned and keeps it fresh. IPT is also super helpful for understanding and supporting students with learning disabilities, like ADHD. For example, students with ADHD may struggle with attention or working memory. And IPT gives us a framework to design strategies and interventions tailored to their needs. If you are interested in, feel free to take a picture or pause to screenshot. 3, 2, 1, and bye. But hold on, what are the downsides? No model is perfect. IPT assumes that humans are like computers, but obviously we're not. Unlike machines, we have emotions, social contexts, and cultural differences that affect how we process information. For instance, someone might interpret a situation very differently when they're angry versus when they're calm. But IPT doesn't fully account for that. It also doesn't explain how individual or cultural backgrounds impact learning and memory. So, to recap, information processing theory helps explain how we process information through attention, perception, encoding, storage, and retrieval based on this model. It's incredibly useful in helping people know how learning process and designing effective teaching and learning strategies. But it's not without its limitations. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and save it. And hey, screenshot the IPT model summary if you want a quick reference.